Any day now, we'll be getting official news about the new DC universe. Until then though, all we could really do is get hints from James Gunn himself. That will not be what this video will be about. This video will be going over a series of scoops and leaks that have come out from various sources and insiders, most of whom have gotten things right in the past. These leaks, if true, would be really big news for this new universe, the biggest we've gotten so far. But you're gonna have to take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt. None of it comes from James Gunn himself, so there's a chance that none of it will be right in the end. But like I said, these leakers have gotten things right in the past, at least most of them have, so there's definitely some validity to the fact that these things might end up being true. With that all out of the way, let's not waste any more time and begin with what is probably the most likely to be true out of all of these leaks, and it's about Superman. The first leak comes from somebody named Dumoy. He has a lot of followers on Instagram and on Twitter, and most of his leaks are about castings. In the past for DC, he leaked that Barry Keoghan will play the Joker in The Batman, and that Lady Gaga will play Harley Quinn in Joker 2, both of which ended up being true. This time around, the leak is about the new Superman movie, and more specifically, who's going to be playing Superman. The leak claims that James Gunn's top choice for Superman, which means that it isn't set in stone, it's just who James Gunn wants to play him, is a certain Australian actor who was in a rom-com trilogy on Netflix and is currently on an HBO teen show. This is very clearly Jacob Elordi. He's Australian, he was in the Netflix rom-com trilogy The Kissing Booth, and the HBO teen show in question is Euphoria. He's also 25 years old, which fits the age range that Gunn is looking for with a younger Superman, and I think it kind of works. Looks-wise, Jacob Elordi could probably pass as Superman. The only thing is that he doesn't have black hair, his hair is brown, but I guess it's like really dark brown, which they could maybe dye if they need to. But he's a good-looking, muscular, and tall. I mean, like, he's really tall. He's 6'5", and he's proven in the past that he could definitely pull off an American accent to the point where I saw him in interviews and was surprised that he was Australian. And from what I've seen, which is really just Euphoria, he is a really good actor. The thing is though, the only thing I've seen him in is Euphoria, and while that show definitely proved that he could pull off an American accent and that he is a good actor, he also plays an actual sociopath. As Nate Jacobs, he's possibly as far away from Superman as you can get as a character. He's an aggressive, manipulative, sinister character that is practically the main villain of the show, and Jacob plays him really well. I've never seen him anywhere else, but it might be difficult to go from seeing him as a complete psychopath to him being Superman, like the best person in the universe. But at the same time, Jacob is a great actor, again, from what I've seen, and while I've never seen him in anything else, I'm sure he doesn't always play a villain. Like, I'm pretty sure he's the main love interest in The Kissing Booth, so I guess he has a bit more range than just the villain in Euphoria. Although, if I'm being honest, unless an actor is actually terrible at acting or is a terrible person in real life, then I don't want to judge the casting beforehand. Like, I never would have considered Jacob Elordi for Superman. I would have considered him for other superheroes because he definitely looks like he could be a superhero, but I thought maybe a more rough around the edges one, not the actual personification of good that is the exact opposite of Nate Jacobs in Superman. But at the same time, I never would have considered Robert Pattinson for Batman, and he ended up being great. So even if Jacob Elordi is not who I would have considered, and he definitely isn't a popular fan choice, I would keep an open mind because most of the castings are not Ezra Miller, Jesse Eisenberg, or Jared Leto. Most of them ended up being good, so Jacob Elordi would probably end up being a pretty good Superman, especially if James Gunn is writing and directing, which this leak actually confirms, I mean, if it is true, that he is actually doing both. Oh, and also in that same leak, the leaker also mentioned that a summer 2025 release date is what they're looking at for this movie, which is definitely the year I expected. Although summer is early, I thought maybe they could possibly release it by 2025, meaning like late 2025, but mid-2025, that being summer, implies that maybe they could release another movie that year and begin off the universe a bit earlier than I would have expected. Now, I'm recording this bit a little bit later because James Gunn actually addressed this rumor that Jacob Elordi is going to be playing Superman by saying that nobody has been cast as Superman yet, and that casting will only go underway after he finishes writing the script, which he hasn't, but also that while we will get an announcement in January, the casting of Superman will not be one of them, which, yeah, sure, it doesn't really debunk anything I went over. Like, the rumor never said that he had been cast, just that he was James Gunn's top choice, and honestly, James Gunn Gunn usually debunks rumors if they aren't completely true, and he never actually debunked that Jacob Elordi was a possibility, but also at the same time he never said anything to support it, so it could go either way. But because that leaker did get things right, I do think that they were at least a bit truthful in what they heard, and that James Gunn definitely did consider Jacob Elordi, but obviously he hadn't been cast yet. But again, we never said that he had. The same leaker who leaked that the Green Lantern show is being reworked into a Jon Stewart show dropped a few more leaks regarding Peacemaker, the Suicide Squad, and the Justice League. That whole Jon Stewart thing ended up being true. I mean, if the show ever comes out is another thing, but it's currently being developed as a Jon Stewart show instead of a show that is about Alan Scott, Guy Gardner, and a couple others. So there's a bit of validity to the claims, and these leaks might end up being true. Apparently, Peacemaker Season 2 will feature Bloodsport, Green Arrow, and maybe even Superman, or at least that's what the leaker assumes, since his source said that the top dog of the DC Universe will be appearing. So maybe Peacemaker Season 2 is going to be where they establish what is and what isn't in this new universe, and will feature the first appearances of the new Superman, the new Green Arrow, and a couple others before their solo movies. Now, I'll be honest, this doesn't really sound all that legit. This would be huge compared to Peacemaker Season 1, which only managed cameos from the Flash and Aquaman of the previous universe. Also, introducing these characters in Peacemaker in a team-up with Peacemaker would be a weird introduction to what will end up being like the foundations of this new universe, but at the same time, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just very, very different from what you would expect for them to debut in a TV show where they team up with Peacemaker, who was also from the previous universe as well. It's definitely really weird, and again, if I'm being honest, that part of the leak does not sound legit to me at all, but that's not the end of it. The same leaker also teased that a sequel to the Suicide Squad is in early development, and that the idea is for it to be much bigger in scale than the first two, with 3 different teams of villains fighting each other. Peacemaker Season 2 will have Peacemaker team up with the Bloodsport, which will lead into Suicide Squad 3, where Peacemaker and Bloodsport lead a team of obscure characters, probably characters who haven't appeared yet in the universe, against 2 other teams. One team would be the regular Suicide Squad team with characters like King Shark, Harley Quinn, and apparently Captain Boomerang will return. I've seen online like a meme that if Captain Boomerang returns and somebody asks, "How are you alive?" he should just say, you know, a boomerang always comes back. I think that would be funny, and you know, you could just say, I don't know, the Flash movie did it, who knows. With the third team being a team called Checkmate, which in the comics is not really a team, it's more so an organization, and that's probably what it's going to be in the movie, led by Deathstroke, a character that James Gunn basically confirmed that he has plans for. Now, all of that sounds really, really exciting and really, really great, but what's really interesting to me is that this seems to indicate that the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker will completely remain canon, probably with all of the actors remaining in their respective roles, which granted James Gunn has kind of refuted in the past, but at the same time he kind of hasn't. The way he worded this tweet from like a month ago makes it seem like 2 options are possible. Either the Suicide Squad are being recast, or they are remaining, but they aren't the only ones who are remaining, and for instance, Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa might also be remaining in their respective roles. There's just a bit of concern that all of this would be way too confusing, not just for general audiences to follow, but honestly for even hardcore fans. Like, the Batman movies are separate, but then this universe will have their own Batman. The Suicide Squad is canon, but the original isn't since Batfleck appears. Peacemaker is canon, but also kind of not since the finale featured Ezra Miller Flash and Jason Momoa Aquaman, unless Jason Momoa Aquaman remains, in which case there will be a Aquaman who's 45 years old, in the same universe that Superman is just 25, which is very, very unusual. And even then, that Aquaman cameo could only be explained if Ezra Miller also remains as the Flash, which nobody wants. They could explain all this away with the Flash movie, but it's coming out before Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which it really shouldn't. They should really move Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and switch it with the Flash's release date, and use the Flash movie as the reset point for this new universe. Then you could explain somehow in some way what is and what isn't, because if you don't do that, and even if you do, I just think that it would have been so much simpler to do a full reboot and go from there. Yeah, sure, it would be tragic losing some great castings, but in the long run, it would be much, much harder to establish the new universe with having to explain what does and doesn't connect, because right now, even for me, it's a bit confusing, and I really wish that James Gunn would clear the air and tell us, officially, what is and what isn't. The same leaker also teased that James Gunn wants Firestorm, Hawkgirl, the Atom, and Blue Beetle all to join the Justice League. The former three haven't appeared anywhere yet, and would definitely be really cool to see them in this universe. And by anywhere, I don't mean they haven't appeared in live action, I just mean in this universe we haven't seen them at all. As for Blue Beetle, we don't know which Blue Beetle they're talking about, but since Jaime Reyes is getting his own movie soon, a movie which James Gunn is very clearly excited about, I'll assume they're talking about Jaime Reyes, and that Blue Beetle movie will end up being a part of this new universe. Although it also might mean Ted Kord, since the same leaker teased that the end credit scene in Blue Beetle, or at least for now, he did say that it might end up being cut out, is a scene where Ted Kord and Booster Gold jump out of some sort of portal in Jaime Reyes' house to ask him for help. With Ted Kord not knowing why Jaime Reyes has his beetle, I'm assuming that in the movie this will mean that Ted Kord didn't actually die, he just disappeared, probably on some sort of time travel adventure with Booster Gold, and then some sort of complication led him to coming back a couple months or a year or a couple of years later, and that will be the timeline of the Blue Beetle movie. And since I have absolutely no doubt that if Blue Beetle ends up being even mildly successful, they'll definitely integrate the movie into the new universe, then this is actually pretty cool, and maybe Ted Kord Blue Beetle will be the one that they're talking about to join the Justice League, so maybe the Blue Beetle movies will feature Jaime Reyes, while the Justice League movies will have Ted Kord. This last section comes from somebody on Reddit. He isn't an insider or a source or anything, he's just somebody on Reddit who claimed that he has a friend who works as a graphic designer for James Gunn and his new movie slate, and has apparently leaked what will be announced. Take this section with an extra grain of salt and maybe even a grain of pepper, since there's absolutely nothing to back this up, but I decided to talk about it anyway because I had some interesting thoughts about what this new slate looks like, if this is to be true, and it may very well be the case. Now this might be disproven like 2 days after this video comes out, but according to this guy, the announcements that are coming out in January might be a Superman movie, a Green Arrow and Black Canary movie, a Wonder Woman movie, and finally, the most surprising of all of these, a Batman TV show. Now, so we obviously already knew about the Superman movie. That isn't surprising, but it is definitely still exciting. There's a Green Arrow and Black Canary movie, which is exciting, but also not very surprising, as James Gunn has said like 2 or 3 times that Green Arrow is one of his favorite superheroes, and that he has plans for this character. What is especially exciting is that if it's a Green Arrow and Black Canary movie, then it confirms that this movie will deal with something that every other live-action version of Green Arrow has completely skipped, which is the relationship between Green Arrow and Black Canary. A Wonder Woman movie is a bit more surprising, at least for the initial release, since she's the only one of these characters to have a recent movie, aside from Batman, but according to this leak, Batman wouldn't even get a movie. This movie might very well be a reworked Wonder Woman 3, as this whole changing of the DC universe started with Wonder Woman 3 being cancelled, but then it was revealed that it wasn't actually cancelled. They just don't want to do what Patty Jenkins wanted to do with the movie, and then Patty Jenkins left. They may very well keep on Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. It may just be a sequel to Wonder Woman 1984, and it may just be Wonder Woman 3. And if it is, then Wonder Woman would finally join the other 2 members of the Trinity as the only DC characters to have a full trilogy of movies. Man, DC is way behind Marvel. God damn, there's an Ant-Man trilogy, come on. And then there's finally a Batman TV show, which actually makes a lot of sense if Robert Pattinson's Batman has to be separate, which I still think is a bad idea. Then it wouldn't make sense to give another Batman his own movies, but also if you don't give him his own movies, it wouldn't make sense for Batman to only appear in the Justice League movies. So a TV show is a pretty good idea. It would give them the opportunity to include the entirety of the Batman mythos with an expanded amount of screen time. With the TV show, you could have enough time and episodes to build the entire Bat family from scratch, or just start in the middle and just tell really good stories while including like all of the dozens of iconic Batman villains in his rogues gallery. So that's it for all the leaks in this video. Out of all of them, I definitely think that the Jacob Elordi being eyed for Superman leak is the most likely to be true, because it comes from a trusted source and it seems legit. You compare that to the last thing, which does seem legit but doesn't come from a trusted source. And then there's the middle thing, which is a bit of a wild card. It does come from somebody who's gotten things right in the past. but it doesn't seem legit at all. It seems all over the place. So I guess we'll have to wait to see what of these leaks are true, if any. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe-a-ly dibble. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these things you would like to be true and which ones you wouldn't. Goodbye.